Okay, this should be working. Just in case, I'm going to share the stream and make sure it is working. Always gotta make sure the stream's working first. Okay. This should be working, and let me test audio. There we go. Alright, good morning to those across eastern China and parts of Taiwan and maybe even the northern Philippines. Let's get into the potential impacts that we're going to cover. Two storms mainly. We're going to be covering Tropical Storm Erin and Typhoon Podul, also known as Goryeo, in the Philippines. Starting off with Typhoon Podul, it is currently or Podul, I believe is how you pronounce it. It is currently a minimal Category 1 typhoon, but over the next 24 hours or so, it is expected to strengthen to a Category 2 before slamming into Taiwan, most likely the southern half of Taiwan, and quickly weakening to a tropical storm before then moving inland across China. Now, taking a look at the potential impacts the system could bring, we see a broad area of marginal impacts, mainly to the south, including the Batanes Islands, in the entirety of Taiwan, parts of Fujian, and then further inland of China, and parts of far northern Guangdong province. These areas, mostly for Taiwan, is going to be in the form of wind. The Batanes Island is mainly in the form of wind and rain. And further inland across China, that is mostly a rainfall threat. Now, if we take a look at the potential impacts for slight risk, here we have mainly the southern two-thirds of Taiwan are in that risk, and then again parts of China, wherever the center moves, that is more of a rainfall threat, whereas Taiwan, it's mainly a mixture of rain and wind. And looking at this corridor of moderate impacts for southeastern Taiwan, that is mainly due to the fact that this may be a typhoon as it slams into Taiwan. It's becoming more likely than not that it will even strengthen further and slam into it as a possible Category 2. That's why we're expecting some moderate impacts. Now, if we take a look at Tropical Storm Erin, this is a forecast cone that was made earlier this morning. This goes out to the next 7 days. As a reminder, this is unofficial. And the impacts are over the next 5 days. We can see that parts of the northern Leeward Islands do have a slight risk, and parts of marginal risk, and far northeastern Puerto Rico is also in that. The U.S. Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands are also in that. But then the far northern, like Anguilla, those regions, the northern Leeward Islands, mainly Antigua and Barbuda, for example, and Anguilla, are in that possibility of slight impacts. It's too far out just yet to determine if it's going to go on a more southerly trajectory, but it is likely that the system will be a major hurricane by the time it moves near those islands. We are currently predicting it will become a hurricane over the next 60 hours, a Category 2 over the next 4 days, and a major hurricane over the next 5 days. And the system will potentially start curving northwards as a major Category 3 hurricane. It's too far out to determine where it's going to go in that longer range. That's why the cone gets so wide in that point. Again, this is an experimental cone. I've been testing this out for the past year or two. And now we're starting to implement that with the threat level graphics. Taking a look at the global view of tropics right now, we have a lot going on across the world. We have the remnants of Dexter moving towards Ireland in the United Kingdom. We have an area of interest here in the North Atlantic with a 10% chance of development. Could see something subtropical or tropical developing by Atlantic Canada and New England. We have Tropical Storm Erin here with winds of around 45 miles an hour. That may be conservative and slightly out of date. In the Eastern Pacific, we have the remnants of Evo here, which is fortunately moving out to sea. Didn't really impact land. And we have an area of interest here with a 10% chance of development over the next 7 days. Again, going out to sea. Hurricane Henriette, that has become the first hurricane to become a hurricane north of Hawaii since 2015, so that's quite impressive, but the system is beginning to weaken. Looking in the Western Pacific, we have 99W, which I forgot to translate over on this side as well, which has only around a 10% chance of development over the next 48 hours, should remain out to sea. Of course, we have Typhoon Podul here. But we also have two other areas of interest, one in the Philippine Sea with a 20% chance and one in the South China Sea with a 30% chance, something we'll have to watch out for over the coming week or so. Again, we are currently in code red. The code red is mainly for Podul, but we are in code yellow for Aaron. Again, if you have any questions, you can always leave them in the chat and I will gladly answer. Looking at the satellite imagery of Podul right now, we can see that the system is quite a broad and sloppy mess right now for what's supposed to be a Category 1. Or what's supposed to be a typhoon. It's not looking so well right now, mainly just some sheer kind of disrupting its overall organization. But the system is expected to continue moving westwards towards Taiwan, and again, potentially strengthen to a Category 2. Looking at infrared here, we can see that the system isn't really looking that great for what's supposed to be a typhoon, really only seeing a burst on the southeastern side of it. Really, the northwestern side is mostly exposed. So again, not looking that healthy just yet, but still it has another 24 hours or so to improve. Now looking at the environmental conditions of the system, shear's not really popping up here, so let's take a look at sea surface temperatures. Sea surface temperatures are expected to be more than favorable for further intensification, with waters of around 30 degrees Celsius, 29 by the time it reaches the coast of Taiwan, and goes down to around 27 when it's reaching Fujian and Guangdong province of China. Let's see what else we have here. Oceanic heat content is expected to be, again, favorable for it to continue to intensify. Again, the system isn't really stalling out, so it's not too much of a problem. Now, taking a look at distances from certain areas. From Taiwan, the system is currently roughly around 700 kilometers away off the coast of there, roughly around 1,000 or 1,100 kilometers away from the coast of Fujian, and around 1,100 to 1,200 kilometers away from the coast of Guangdong province in China, where it could make a secondary landfall as a tropical storm. Again, looking at the distance from the Batanes Islands, roughly around 600 kilometers away. Again, the system is expected to move towards the north, but they could get some marginal impacts from it. Now, taking a look at the model runs here, we can see the European run showing the system strengthening to potentially a Category 2 typhoon in the 950s millibar range, before then slamming into Taiwan and then potentially remaining a typhoon as it moves into Guangdong province in China, something we need to keep an eye out on. Looking at the American run here, showing some marginal strengthening, not a whole lot, maybe becoming a mid-range Category 1 before slamming Taiwan, and has it as a weaker tropical storm moving into Guangdong and Fujian province. Now looking at the German run, this has been the most bullish run on this, showing it potentially reaching major typhoon status over the next 24 hours before again slamming into southern Taiwan and likely remaining a minimal typhoon when it moves into Guangdong and Fujian provinces. Looking at the Canadian run, again, not showing a whole lot of strengthening, only has it as around a minimal typhoon by the time it slams into Taiwan, and again, generally a weak tropical storm by the time it moves into China. Looking at the ensembles, there's not going to be a whole lot of spread here. It does seem likely that the system will be making landfall in Taiwan. Maybe it just goes to the south and barely misses it, but that would be more of a problem for Guangdong province in China. And here's a look at those two other systems that may potentially develop over the next week or so. Again, one in the South China Sea and one in the Philippine Sea. And here's a look at the strike probabilities. Again, the southern parts of Taiwan have the highest chance. Here's a look at the probabilities of certain cities. I don't know exactly what that is because of translation things. But again, it looked like, according to the European ensembles, it looks more likely that the system will move into southern Fujian province than northern Guangdong province, and then further move inland. But then again, it looks a little bit split in the later runs there. It's like a little fork in the road there. But again, it's pretty consistent on where the impacts are going to be. Looking at the American ensembles, again, not a whole lot of spread. Whoops, that's a little bit out of date. Not a whole lot of spread on where it's going. Pretty much every ensemble shows landfall in Taiwan. But again, they're showing another possible system developing near Hainan Island in the South China Sea. Again, just something to keep an eye out on. Looking at the American ensembles on this map here, again, we can see that pretty much every ensemble shows it making landfall in Taiwan, then moving on to China. And we can see that other system over here in the South China Sea. Looking at the European AI model, just looking at the patterns overall for the next week or so across the tropics. Let me up this a little bit, get this more recent. Again, has it slamming into Taiwan as a typhoon before moving into China. Then you can see those two other disturbances that try to develop on either side of the Philippines, one in the Philippine Sea and one in the South China Sea. But generally after that, not a whole lot of tropical activity over the next 10 days. Looking in the Indian Ocean, though, we may see something try to spin up over the next 5 days or so. And in the Atlantic, not seeing a whole lot, just a couple of disturbances that may try and spin up some tropical waves. But yeah. Now looking at the rainfall totals that are expected over the next 5 days, the European run shows a total of around 200 millimeters for southern Taiwan, with the majority of Taiwan getting at least 100 millimeters. Further inland in towards parts of Guangdong province shows around 100 to 200 millimeters of rain as well. Mainly where that center, that core moves over, will get the heaviest rain. Oh wait, no, that's only the 3-day range. If I go to 5-day range, it stays about the same because the system's going to be moving way further into China and dissipating within the next 3 days, most likely. Within the next 4, I'd say. The American run shows again around 200 millimeters of rain in southeastern Taiwan, with totals of around 100 millimeters for parts of central Taiwan. And it shows generally lower totals across China, only around 50 to 100 millimeters. That may be quite conservative. Looking at the German run, this is the one that's been the most bullish on its development. Thankfully, though, only showing around 180 millimeters of rain, maybe 200 millimeters of rain, impacting southern Taiwan, and it keeps those higher totals of 300 to 400 millimeters off the coast. Lanyu may get that heavier rainfall. But again, mainly on China, some pockets of 200 millimeters of rain. Something to keep an eye out on. I don't know if this run shows it. The MSM run over the next 2 days, this is a more higher resolution model. This is a more realistic scenario on the mountains of eastern Taiwan, showing totals of 300 to 400 millimeters of rain possible. But again, for more of those metro areas like Taipei, only around 20 millimeters of rain. Some areas on southwestern Taiwan may get upwards of 200 millimeters of rain. But yeah, generally just flooding is going to be a problem on potential mudslides as well for eastern Taiwan along those mountains. Looking at the forecast cone, this is from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. I don't think they've updated it. No, they have not. Okay. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center is forecasting it currently right now to be a 65 knots minimal Category 1, then strengthens to a mid-range Category 1 over the next 12 hours, before intensifying to a Category 2 over the next 24 hours, before then slamming into Taiwan, likely as a Category 2 or high in Category 1, and moves through Taiwan as a Category 1 typhoon and reaches the South China Sea as nearly a severe tropical storm, or sorry, not South China Sea, the coast of China as nearly a severe tropical storm, before then moving inland in towards China and then dissipating around the next 3 days or so. Looking at the forecast from Pagasa, it keeps it as a typhoon over the next 24 hours, moves it through Taiwan as a severe tropical storm, then moves it in towards China as a tropical storm. Shows where the area of at least storm force winds are mainly on the northeastern quadrant, not really impacting any land just quite yet. Now, what the heck is this? Okay, this is the storm. I was like, what storm is this? This is Podul right now. Generally showing the system trying to wrap around more convection on that northwestern side. It is struggling quite well on that. It's mainly all confined to the southeastern side. That is currently all mainly for this update. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat and I will gladly answer. Squira asks if it's going to be a Category 1 landfall. It's really looking likely that it will be at least a Category 1 at landfall. Looking at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, they even suggest the possibility of a Category 2 at landfall, so it is likely that we will be doing live coverage on this storm as it makes that landfall. TC asks, last hurricane to happen north of Hawaii was Ignacio 2015. Now remember, the last hurricane to be north of Hawaii was actually, I believe, Douglas back in 2020. This would be the last hurricane to strengthen to a hurricane north of Hawaii since 2015. So yes, thank you for reminding me. It was Ignacio was the storm. If this did become a Category 2, that would have been the first time in history. What the heck kind of fire is that? Wow. Oh wait, never mind. I thought that was a fire. I thought that was smoke. That's just a thunderstorm. Now let's take a look at some of the global, what's going on across the globe right now in terms of heat and very cold weather right now. The northeastern part of the United States is experiencing record heat right now, and that is expected to continue for the next few days. I'm curious if they're under anything like a heat advisory. I doubt it, because again, record heat for them right now isn't. Oh wow, there are some areas in Maine that are under a heat advisory right now. Again, pretty record heat happening up there, and it's expected to happen for the next few days in parts of Atlantic Canada. Seems like Egypt is going to be reaching some record warms in parts of France and the United Kingdom. Looking in parts of, let's see, parts of Australia warmer than average, parts of Africa cooler than average. Just going to look at this again. Not a whole lot of parts of Jordan and Israel as well, same thing. Now let's take a look at the wind and how windy it's going to be. I'm not showing a whole lot. Of course, they're going to be picking up Aaron there as the windier conditions there. But looking across the globe, though, not a whole lot of windy or calm conditions. Maybe some windy areas in Kazakhstan and Mongolia and southeastern Russia, but that's about it. Now looking at the rain, though, of course Taiwan's going to be in that area of potentially record-breaking rainfall, at least for daily records. Looking across the global view right now, some rainy areas near Florida, parts of Canada, parts of Alaska especially. Drier areas not happening a whole lot. Mainly the United Kingdom, though, is in that drier conditions. Looking over the next few days, not seeing a whole lot of very rainy areas to look out for. It's mainly just the heat right now in parts of Europe and northeastern North America. TC says the JMA, the Japan Meteorological Agency, assessed Podul as a typhoon before the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. I believe it. I believe it became a typhoon roughly 24 hours ago. We had an SMAP pass that confirmed that, and around a scatterometer pass that confirmed those winds were likely near typhoon force. I would like to talk more about the models and on Aaron, because this will be a system that we may have to stream over the next few days, depending on how big of a threat it becomes to the Leeward Islands, and potentially even the United States or Bermuda. Something to really keep a close eye on. Looking at the European run, it does continue to strengthen the storm to a major hurricane around mainly day 5 to 7. And then curves it mainly northwards away from land and threads the needle really between Bermuda and the United States. Keeps it mainly away from land the whole run there. But if we take a look at something like the American run, keeps it pretty far south and again avoids land over the next 10 days. Looking at the Canadian run, that's a little bit close for comfort. Has it just north of Puerto Rico over the next 6 days or so, and northwards of the Leeward Islands over the next 5 days as a potential hurricane or even major hurricane. So that is very close for comfort on this run. And then has it moving westwards towards the Turks and Caicos Islands and the northern Bahamas, before then near the Carolinas and the southeastern United States. Looking at the German run, has it generally curving out to sea towards Bermuda. Again, this run doesn't go out that far. But now if we take a look at some of the ensembles on the system, it has continued to uptrend and has continued to push more south and westwards. Some of these ensembles even take it as a hurricane in through the Leeward Islands. So that's why they could see some slight or even greater impacts. But generally, most of the ensembles have it well to the north of those islands. Some of those ensembles has it going through the Bahamas, in the Turks and Caicos Islands, or at least very close, and some of those ensembles slam into the southeastern United States. and even parts of Bermuda there on the eastern side of that. But generally looks like it might try to thread the needle there. We may see some support in the wave after that, but it's just too far out to say for sure. Looking at the American ensembles here, again, it has trended more south, and some of those ensembles are showing impacts in the northern Leeward Islands. So, again, if you're in those areas, you should be monitoring the latest National Hurricane Center forecast. And I'll try to provide more updates, especially when live streaming on Podul tomorrow. I'm just seeing where the system is, where Aaron will be trending as well. And some of those ensembles take it towards Florida even. It's something to keep an eye on, especially along Bermuda as well. That could be a place getting hit by a major hurricane. It's just too far out to say for sure where it's going. It needs to be watched over the next week or so. 7 to 10 days or so. Other than that, that's pretty much all the tropical systems. If you have any other questions, you can let me know in the chat. If not, I will go over one more review of the system. Alright, so again, just one last review on these next two systems here. Again, Tropical Storm Aaron expected to become a major hurricane over the next 5 days, potentially curve out to sea. It's too far out to know what it's going to do just quite yet. We'll have a better idea over the coming days. But if you're in the northern Leeward Islands and parts of the U.S. Virgin Islands and mainly the eastern Lesser Antilles, you should continue to monitor the forecast, because again, the system could be coming your way as a major hurricane. We don't know just yet. Currently, really only slight impacts, though, are expected, mainly in the form of tropical storm to severe or damaging winds, mainly. Thankfully, the system isn't as much of a rain threat as it is a wind threat as of right now. And as a reminder for Typhoon Podul, also known as Goryo in the Philippines, the system is expected to strengthen to a potentially Category 2 typhoon before slamming into Taiwan. We will have likely a live stream as it makes that landfall in eastern Taiwan, if it is still a typhoon at that time. We will likely have a live stream tomorrow discussing the system. I think so. Actually, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to look at the forecast one last time just because I don't know if I'm doing something then. Let's see. Okay, well, problem is I might be out during that time. If it makes landfall earlier in the day, or earlier in the night for you all there, I will likely be doing a stream during that. Otherwise, I will likely be doing other things. But I will try to do my best there to record an update before it makes landfall, and that update might become the landfall live stream. Again, though, expected to move inland into parts of China as a tropical storm, before then weakening out and fizzling out over mainland China. Should dissipate over the next 4 days, but it is going to be speeding inland there, so again, taking some of that intensity with it as it moves into Fujian and Guangdong provinces of China, and then even further inland. Well, that's all from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and again, if you have any questions, you can let me know in the live stream chat after it becomes a video. And I'm just going to make sure that there's no other questions from the previous live stream that I missed. No, it was just someone commenting about how they missed the stream. Alright, so again, thank you all so much for watching. I will have more updates on this system. If you want to get more up-to-date information, I post this stuff on Twitter, also known as X, and on Facebook and on Blue Sky, all that stuff. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next